Everyone called her a liar, even when she begged them to listen. But when the most feared king in Chicago said, "No one touches her," the truth she was hiding started a war no one could stop. The night glittered with false perfection. Crystal chandeliers poured golden light over the grand ballroom of Chicago's most prestigious hotel, a place where power dressed itself in elegance and danger wore a tailored smile. The charity gala was meant to celebrate generosity, but beneath the polished surface, it was something else entirely. Judges, politicians, media figures, and businessmen filled the room, their laughter smooth, their voices controlled, their alliances hidden behind handshakes and expensive suits. Every conversation carried a whisper of influence, every glance measured, every movement calculated. Above them all, unseen by most, stood Damian Russo, the king of Chicago. From the private balcony overlooking the ballroom, Damian observed everything without needing to be seen. His presence was quiet, but it carried a weight that pressed against the air itself. Men feared him without knowing why. Women admired him without understanding what stood behind his silence. His empire was not visible, but it controlled everything beneath it. His breath remained steady, his posture still, his eyes cold as they traced the patterns of the room. Then the doors burst open. The sound cut through the elegance like a fracture in glass. Heads turned. Conversations died. Music faltered. A young woman stumbled into the ballroom. Her uniform didn't belong in this world. Cheap fabric, slightly wrinkled, a badge clipped to her chest that marked her as staff, invisible, replaceable. But her presence was anything but invisible. Her hair was disheveled, her face pale, her heart pounding so visibly it seemed to echo through the room. Fear clung to her, but something stronger kept her standing. Ava Monroe. She didn't walk forward gracefully. She pushed through the crowd, her steps uneven but determined, her eyes scanning faces not with doubt, but urgency. The room watched her like she didn't belong, like she had disrupted something sacred. And in their world, she had. "Stop her," someone muttered. But Ava didn't stop. She reached the center of the ballroom, her breath sharp, her voice shaking, but not breaking. "He's lying," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "He's not who you think he is." A ripple of confusion spread instantly. Eyes followed her gaze. Harold Kane, a respected businessman, a donor, a man whose reputation stood untouched, polished, untouchable. He stood near the front, perfectly composed, his expression calm, almost amused. The kind of man who built trust effortlessly. Ava pointed at him. "He's taking girls," she said, louder now, "through fake shelters. He hides them, moves them. No one sees it because he makes it look clean." For 1 second, silence. Then it shattered. Laughter erupted across the room. Not nervous, not uncertain, confident, dismissive, controlled. "She's unstable," someone whispered. "Attention seeker. Security." The words spread quickly, replacing truth with assumption, burying her voice beneath judgment. Ava's hands trembled, but she didn't lower them. Her eyes burned with something deeper than fear now, something that refused to dissipate. "I'm telling the truth," she shouted. But the room had already decided. 2 security men moved toward her, their steps firm, efficient. This was routine. Remove the disruption. Restore control. Maintain the illusion. Ava stepped back instinctively, her breath quickening, her heart pounding louder than ever. For a moment, it looked like she might break. But she didn't. "No," she said, quieter now, but stronger. "You don't understand. They're in danger." The word lingered. Danger. It should have meant something. It didn't. Security reached for her arms. And that's when the air changed. It didn't happen loudly. No dramatic interruption. No raised voice. Just a shift. Subtle. Absolute. From above, Damian Russo moved. He didn't rush. He didn't react like the others. He simply stood. And the entire room felt it. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Laughter died without explanation. Even the security guards hesitated, their hands freezing inches from Ava, because when the king of an empire moved, everything else followed. Damian stepped forward onto the balcony edge, his shadow falling across the room like a quiet warning. His gaze didn't go to Harold Kane. It went to the girl, Ava Monroe. She stood trembling, but unbroken. For the first time that night, someone was truly looking at her. The room held its breath, waiting, expecting. Because everyone knew how this worked. Damien protected his allies. Harold Kane was valuable, important, trusted. This would end quickly, quietly. The girl would disappear like she never existed. That was the rule. That was the control. But Damien didn't follow it. His voice came low, calm, carrying more power than any shout ever could. No one touches the girl. A pause. Long enough to make every heart start pounding. Until I hear everything. Before the grand ballroom, before the lights, before the whispers of power and judgment, Ava Monroe existed in a world no one in that room would ever understand. South Chicago did not offer safety. It did not offer second chances. It offered survival, and even that came with conditions. Ava learned early that nothing in her life would be handed to her. Not protection, not loyalty, not even the illusion of being safe. She had been alone for as long as she could remember. No family, no foundation, just shifting places, temporary shelters, low-paying jobs that barely kept her moving forward. Diners, night shifts, cleaning tables while people with easier lives complained about things she could never afford to care about. Her world was small, harsh, and quiet, but it taught her something important: how to endure. And when the Kane Foundation shelter appeared in her life, it felt like something different, something rare. Safe. That was the word they used. Safe for girls who had nowhere to go. Safe for those escaping danger, broken homes, lost identities. Ava believed it. Not because she was naive, but because she needed to. She volunteered there without pay, staying longer than required, helping girls settle in, listening to their stories, building something close to loyalty in a place that promised protection. For a moment, it felt real, until the night started changing. It wasn't obvious at first. Small things. Names missing from lists. Beds empty without explanation. Staff giving vague answers. Controlled smiles. Whispered excuses. Transfers, they said. Better facilities. Better opportunities. But no one ever came back. Ava noticed patterns others ignored. Midnight movements. Unregistered vehicles. Paperwork that didn't match records. The kind of details that didn't belong in a place that claimed safety. Her instincts sharpened. Her breath would slow every time something felt wrong. And slowly, the truth began to form. This wasn't a shelter. It was a system. And then Lena Brooks disappeared. Lena wasn't just another girl. She was the closest thing Ava had to family. They had shared the same space, the same fears, the same quiet hope that maybe this place could be different. Lena trusted Ava. Stayed close to her. Talked about leaving together one day. Then one night, she was gone. No warning. No explanation. No trace. That was the moment everything shifted. Ava stopped believing in safety. Fear didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It became something she carried instead of something that controlled her. She started watching more carefully, listening more closely, collecting everything no one wanted seen. Names, dates, receipts, small hidden photos taken when no one was looking. Evidence that didn't scream, but whispered the truth loudly enough for someone willing to listen. But no one listened. The police reports went nowhere. Complaints disappeared before they were even processed. Harold Kane's influence stretched further than Ava had imagined. Protection wrapped around him like armor. Every attempt to expose him met the same wall. Silence. That silence came with consequences. Warnings first. Subtle. Then direct. People telling her to stop asking questions. To stay in her place. To remember what happened to girls who didn't follow rules. Then came the pressure. Being followed. Being watched. Being reminded that she was alone. That she had nothing. They wanted her to be afraid. And she was. But she didn't stop. Because somewhere between losing Lena and discovering the truth, Ava Monroe became something else. She was not a victim. She became someone who chose truth, even when it meant stepping directly into danger. That was why she stood in that ballroom. That was why her heart was pounding as the entire room turned against her. And that was why she didn't break. Back in the present, under the weight of powerful eyes and controlled judgment, Ava stood her ground. Damien Russo watched her from above, his gaze sharper now, more focused. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't performance. This was conviction. Real. Dangerous. Do you have proof? Someone demanded from the crowd. Ava's fingers tightened slightly, but her voice remained steady. Yes. The room shifted again. A small crack in their certainty. Damien leaned forward slightly, his interest no longer hidden. Power recognized something rare when it saw it. And, he asked quietly. Ava swallowed once, her breath catching for just a second. I brought someone, she said. A pause. Silence. She saw everything. She was there the night Lena disappeared. Hope flickered for the first time. But then it broke. Ava's eyes moved toward the entrance. Empty. Her voice dropped. She was supposed to be here. The realization hit slowly. Then all at once, the witness was missing. The silence after Ava's words did not feel empty anymore. It felt unstable. The kind of silence that carried the weight of something about to break. Damien Russo did not look away from her. Not when the room shifted uncomfortably. Not when Harold Kane stepped forward with controlled outrage. Not when the carefully built illusion of the night began to crack under something real. Instead, Damien lifted his hand slightly. That was all it took. The ballroom doors closed with a heavy finality. Locks engaged with quiet precision, sealing the room in a way no one had expected. The sound echoed deeper than it should have, and suddenly the elegance of the gala turned into something else entirely. A controlled space. No exits. A ripple of panic spread through the guests. Subtle at first, then growing. People turned toward the doors, then back toward Damien, their breath uneven, their confidence slipping. Power was supposed to feel safe when you stood close to it. But tonight, it felt like danger. What is this? Someone demanded. Damien didn't answer, because he didn't need to. His control had already answered for him. Harold Kane stepped forward, his expression tightening just enough to reveal something beneath the polished surface. This is unnecessary, he said, his voice steady but carrying a sharp edge. She's clearly unstable. You're giving attention to something that doesn't deserve it. A whisper of agreement moved through parts of the room. People eager to restore normalcy, to bury discomfort, to return to the version of reality that kept them safe. Ava stood in the center of it all, her heart pounding louder now, her breath uneven, but she didn't step back. Fear was there, undeniable, pressing against her ribs, but it no longer controlled her. Damien noticed something else. Not her voice, not her accusation, her wrists. Faint marks, partially hidden beneath her sleeves. Not fresh, not obvious, but present. The kind of marks that told a story without needing explanation. His gaze lingered there for a fraction of a second longer than necessary, and something inside him shifted. A memory, buried deep, locked away for years under layers of power and control. His sister, gone, vanished through a system that had looked clean from the outside. A charity, a safe place. Promises made in soft voices and broken in silence. He had searched for answers once. Found nothing. Only whispers that led nowhere. Eventually, even a king learned when something could not be found. Or so he thought. Now that same pattern stood in front of him again. And this time, it had a face. Damien's eyes lifted back to Ava. Not as a stranger. As a possibility. Enough, he said quietly. The word cut through the room sharper than any shout. Harold opened his mouth to respond, but Damien's gaze stopped him before a single word formed. That was power. Not loud. Not aggressive. Absolute. Then Damien moved. He stepped down from the balcony slowly. Every movement controlled, deliberate. The room parted without being told to. People stepped back instinctively, creating space not because they were asked, but because they understood. The king had chosen to act. Ava's breath caught as he approached. Up close, his presence felt heavier, more real. She didn't trust him. How could she? He was part of this world. The same world that had ignored her, dismissed her, nearly erased her. But something was different. He stopped in front of her, his voice lowering just enough to become a whisper only she could hear. You're not leaving, he said. A pause. Not until I know the truth. Ava didn't respond immediately. Her instinct screamed caution, but something deeper, something quieter, recognized something else. Protection. Unexpected. Dangerous in its own way. Damien turned slightly, addressing his men without raising his voice. She comes with me. No argument followed, because no one in that room questioned him twice. Not even Harold Kane. Within minutes, Ava was no longer in the ballroom. The noise, the judgment, the suffocating pressure of disbelief left behind. She was led into a private office, dark, controlled, quiet. A space that reflected Damien himself. Food was placed in front of her. Water. A small medical kit. Sit, Damien said. It wasn't harsh. It wasn't soft. It was something in between. Ava hesitated, her eyes scanning the room, measuring distance, exits, danger. She didn't trust him. But her body, her exhausted, worn body, responded to something else. Safe. Not fully, but enough. She sat slowly. Damien watched her, not like a predator, but like someone trying to understand something rare. Start talking, he said. Outside that room, his empire had already begun moving. Silent calls, quiet orders, names being pulled, records being checked, movements tracked. Within minutes, the investigation had started, not loudly, not publicly, but with precision only a king could command. Control returned. But this time, it served something different. And then the message came. One of his men stepped inside, leaning close, speaking in a low whisper. Damien's expression didn't change, but his eyes did. "They're moving tonight," the man said. A pause. Kane's trucks. The city above still glittered with controlled illusion, but beneath it, something darker moved. Damien did not waste time. Within minutes of the whisper, his empire shifted into motion. Orders spread silently through channels no outsider could trace. Vehicles rerouted. Streets monitored. Every path connected to Harold Kane began tightening under unseen pressure. This was not chaos. This was war, executed with precision. Ava stood beside him as they entered the abandoned shelter. From the outside, it looked exactly like every other forgotten building in South Chicago. Cracked walls, boarded windows, a place no one would question because no one wanted to look too closely. But inside, the air felt wrong. Heavy. Still. Like something had been hidden there for too long. Fear returned, pressing against Ava's chest. Her breath slowed as she stepped forward. "This is one of them," she said quietly. They shut it down after people started asking questions. Damien didn't respond. His eyes scanned everything, absorbing details, mapping the space in seconds. His men moved ahead, clearing rooms, checking corners, silent and efficient. "Nothing upstairs," one of them called. Ava shook her head. "It's not upstairs." She moved toward the back hallway, her steps slower now, more cautious, her heart pounding louder with every step. Memories pressed in. The late nights, the locked doors, the sound she never understood until it was too late. "There," she whispered. A door. Plain. Unmarked. But wrong. Damien stepped forward, his presence filling the space, his hand pressing against the safest before pushing it open. Behind it, darkness. A narrow staircase. Leading down. Danger. It wasn't spoken, but everyone felt it. Damien descended first. The king always moved first when it mattered. The air grew colder the deeper they went, thicker with something unspoken. The walls narrowed, turning into tunnels that stretched farther than they should have. This wasn't part of the original building. This was built later. Hidden. Intentional. Shipping routes. One of his men murmured, connecting the structure instantly. Damien's jaw tightened slightly. Control remained. But beneath it, something else was rising. War. The tunnels opened into a larger underground space, and the truth revealed itself without needing explanation. Rows of makeshift beds. Personal belongings scattered in ways that felt rushed, abandoned. Not chaos, but interruption. Ava stepped forward slowly. Her fear didn't dissipate, but it changed. Her eyes moved across the room, searching, hoping, dreading. Then she saw it. A scarf. Soft. Worn. Familiar. Lena's. Ava's breath caught instantly, her body freezing for a second before she moved toward it. Her hands trembled as she picked it up, her heart pounding louder than ever. For a moment, it felt like everything was collapsing inward. "She was here," Ava whispered. "Not gone. Not lost. Hey." The reality struck deeper than any fear she had carried before. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was truth. Close enough to touch. Damien watched her carefully. Not just her reaction, but her strength. She didn't fall apart. She didn't break. Even now, standing in the center of everything she had been trying to prove, she held herself together. Shaking, yes. Afraid, yes. But still standing. She was not a victim. She became something else the moment she chose to walk into that ballroom. "Clear the area," Damien ordered, his voice low but carrying absolute power. His men moved instantly. More doors were opened. More hidden spaces uncovered. And then, movement. Not threats. Survivors. Girls. Hidden. Scared. Silent. Alive. Ava stepped back slightly, her breath uneven, as the realization settled. Not all of them were gone. Not all of them had disappeared into nothing. Some had been waiting. Surviving. Damien's expression changed. Subtly. But permanently. This was no longer an investigation. This was a system. A network. And it had existed under his city. Under his control. That alone made it personal. Shut it down, Damien said. No hesitation. Every route. Every connection. I want nothing moving without my approval. His men nodded, their loyalty absolute. Orders spread instantly. The docks. The trucks. The hidden paths beneath the city. Everything began locking down under Damien's command. Not loudly. Not publicly. But completely. Ava watched it happen, something shifting inside her. For the first time, she wasn't alone. The king had chosen a side. And it wasn't the one everyone expected. One of the rescued girls stepped forward slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes moved between Ava and Damien, uncertain, fragile, but holding something important. Lena, she said softly. Ava turned instantly, stepping close. What about her? Ava asked, her voice tight. The girl hesitated, her breath shaky. Then she spoke. They took her somewhere else. A pause. Somewhere Weiss. Kane's private estate. The mansion did not feel like safety when Ava first stepped inside. It felt like control. Every wall too perfect. Every hallway too quiet. Every movement watched without being seen. The kind of place where nothing happened by accident. Damien Rousseau's world was not built for comfort. It was built for dominance, for power that moved silently and left no space for uncertainty. And now, she was inside it. Ava stood near the entrance longer than necessary, her eyes scanning everything instinctively. Old habits didn't disappear just because the environment changed. Her breath remained careful, measured, her body alert even in stillness. She had spent too long surviving to trust something that looked this controlled. This is temporary, Damien said, his voice low, steady. She didn't look at him immediately. Temporary doesn't mean safe, she replied. The words hung between them, not challenging, just honest. Damien didn't argue, because he understood. Nothing is safe, he said quietly. But hey, you're under my protection. Mine. The word wasn't spoken, but it existed in the space between them, subtle and absolute. Ava felt it, even if she didn't accept it yet. The first days passed in tension. Ava didn't settle easily. She moved through the mansion like a guest who didn't belong, keeping her distance, watching everything. The luxury didn't impress her. If anything, it made her more cautious. People with this much power didn't do things without reason, and she still didn't know his. But she noticed something else. The girls, the ones they had rescued from the tunnels, were brought here too, placed under heavy protection, surrounded by people who treated them differently than Ava expected. Not as burdens, not as problems, as something worth protecting. Doctors arrived quietly. Trauma counselors followed. No media, no attention, no exposure. Everything handled in silence. Controlled, precise, but not cold. Ava watched it carefully. Damien wasn't present in every moment, but his decisions shaped all of it. The same king who ruled through fear was now creating something else behind closed doors. Safety. Not perfect, but real enough to feel. You didn't have to do all this, Ava said one evening when she finally found him alone. Damien stood near the window, the city lights reflecting faintly across the glass. His posture remained still, controlled, as always. Yes, I did, he replied. She frowned slightly. Why? A simple question, but not a simple answer. Damien turned slowly, his gaze steady, unreadable. Because no one did it before. Ava held his gaze, searching for something false. She didn't find it. That was the first moment something shifted. Not trust. Not yet. But something close. The days that followed brought a strange rhythm between them. Not comfortable. Not easy. But consistent. Conversations that started tense and ended quieter. Moments where silence didn't feel like pressure anymore. Damien showed her things no one outside his empire ever saw. Not secrets. Systems. How power works. he said one night, placing a file in front of her. It's not loud. It's not obvious. It moves in decisions, not noise. Ava studied it, her eyes narrowing slightly. And people just follow. They follow what keeps them safe, Damien replied. The word landed differently this time. Ava looked up at him. That's not safety. That's control. A pause. Then, unexpectedly, Damien didn't disagree. That's the difference you still see, he said quietly. And in that moment, something changed again. Ava wasn't just surviving anymore. She was challenging him. And Damien didn't stop her. Because somewhere between her fear and her strength, between her refusal to back down and her quiet moments of vulnerability, she was teaching him something he had buried long ago. Compassion, not weakness. Something stronger. Their connection didn't grow loudly. It didn't need to. It lived in small moments. Shared silence. Unspoken understanding. The way Ava's breath slowed slightly when she realized no one was coming for her. The way Damien stayed close without overwhelming her. And one night, she noticed it. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar. Safe. It didn't make sense. It shouldn't have been possible. But it was real. Ava sat alone in one of the quieter halls later that night, her thoughts heavier than usual. The mansion no longer felt like a cage. It felt like something else. A place where she could finally breathe. That's when she heard it. Voices. Low. A whisper from one of the side rooms. She didn't mean to listen. But she did. Years ago, a voice said quietly, "Before everything, you funded part of Kane's foundation." Ava froze. Her heart started pounding again. Damien's voice answered, calm, but different. "I know." The word didn't echo loudly, but it shattered everything inside Ava. Funded. For a moment, she didn't move. Her breath slowed unnaturally, like her body was trying to hold itself together before the truth fully settled. The safe place she had started to believe in shifted beneath her feet. Not broken yet, but cracked. She stepped back from the door silently, her heart pounding louder with every second. All the quiet moments, all the controlled care, all the protection Damien had given, suddenly felt uncertain. Betrayal didn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it came from the only place that had begun to feel safe. Ava didn't confront him immediately. She couldn't. Because part of her didn't want to hear the answer. But the other part, the part that had survived everything before this, refused to stay blind. By morning, she was ready to leave. No confrontation. No explanation. Just distance. That was how she had always survived. When things stopped making sense, she moved. A small bag. Minimal belongings. No attachment. Her steps were quiet as she moved through the mansion corridors, but her mind wasn't. Every memory replayed differently now. Every moment she had begun to trust him twisted under a new light. Mine. The word she had once felt as protection now felt like control. And she refused to be controlled, leaving without saying anything. Damien's voice cut through the silence behind her. Ava stopped. Her breath tightened. She didn't turn immediately. I heard enough. A pause. Then she faced him. The distance between them felt different now. Colder. Sharper. You funded him, she said. No accusation in her tone. Just truth. Damien didn't deny it. That was the hardest part. Yes. The word landed heavier than anything else. Ava's jaw tightened. Everything he did, every girl, every lie. Your money made it possible. Silence followed. Not defensive. Not angry. Heavy. Damien stepped closer. But not too close. Not enough to corner her. I funded dozens of foundations, he said quietly. Fronts. Clean operations. Public goodwill. I didn't check every detail. That's not an excuse, Ava replied, her voice steady but carrying something deeper now. That's control without responsibility. For the first time, Damien didn't have an immediate answer, because she wasn't wrong. His empire had always been built on systems, distance, decisions that didn't require emotional involvement. He controlled outcomes, not intentions. And Kane had used that. Used his power. Used his name. Turned it into a shield. Damien's gaze lowered slightly, something rare breaking through the surface. I know, he said. Not defensive. Not dismissive. Guilt. Real. Heavy. Unavoidable. I didn't see it, he continued. And because of that, it happened. Ava studied him. searching for something false. She didn't find it. That made it worse, because now the truth wasn't simple anymore. It wasn't just villain and victim. It was something more complicated, more dangerous. I can't stay here, Ava said quietly. Not out of anger, out of survival. Damien didn't stop her, because stopping her would prove her right. Then don't, he replied. A pause. But understand this. I'm fixing it. Ava didn't answer. She turned and walked away. For a moment, it felt like the story was ending. It wasn't, because outside the gates, danger was already waiting. The car didn't reach the main road. Everything happened too cleanly, too precisely. One moment, movement. The next, silence. No chaos, no struggle, just disappearance. Ava was gone. Back inside the mansion, Damien stood still for exactly 1 second when the news reached him. Then everything changed. Control didn't break. It sharpened. Find her, he said. But this time, it wasn't just an order. It was war. Across the city, the shift was immediate. Damien's empire moved in ways it hadn't in years. Routes locked, communications intercepted, allies contacted, enemies exposed. No more quiet containment. This was open pressure. And it reached Kane instantly. Because Kane didn't hide. He responded. Publicly. Screens across the city flickered to life. Media channels picked it up within minutes. Social platforms surged. The narrative twisted faster than truth could catch up. Harold Kane appeared calm. Controlled. Respectable. Exactly how Ava had described him. She is lying, Kane said smoothly. A disturbed girl seeking attention. And Damien Russo, the man funding these so-called shelters, is the real mastermind. The word spread like wildfire. Betrayal turned outward. Damien's name, dragged into it. His allies hesitated. Political connections pulled back. Loyalty began to fracture under pressure. The empire didn't collapse, but it shifted dangerously. For the first time in years, fear moved toward the king. And then Kane revealed the final move. A screen shifted. Ava appeared. Alive, but controlled. A digital timer appeared beside her. A countdown. Kane's voice followed, calm as ever. Let's see how long her truth survives. The room was designed to break people. Controlled lighting. No windows. No sense of time. Just enough space to exist. Not enough to feel safe. Ava sat still, her hands restrained. Her breath slow and deliberate despite the fear pressing against her chest. The screen in front of her reflected her own image back at her. A silent reminder of how the world now saw her. A liar. A distraction. A problem. But Ava Monroe didn't look away from it. Because she knew the truth. And truth, once seen, could not be erased. Kane's voice echoed from somewhere unseen. Calm. Polished. Controlled. You had a chance, he said. You could have stayed quiet. You could have stayed safe. Ava's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out immediately. Her heart pounding steadied, not because the fear disappeared, but because something stronger replaced it. I was never safe, she said finally. Silence followed, then a faint shift in the air. Kane didn't respond, because for the first time, he understood. This wasn't someone he could scare into submission. This was someone who had already survived worse, and that made her dangerous. Ava's eyes moved slowly across the room, not searching for escape, but remembering. Every detail, every structure, every hallway she had walked through during the charity events months ago. She had memoized everything back then without knowing why. Now she knew. Nothing in her life had been accidental. The door, the blind corner, the loose panel near the floor. Small things, forgettable to most. Not to her. Her fingers moved slightly, testing restraint, adjusting pressure. Calm, patient, controlled, the same way she had learned to survive everything else. No panic, no wasted movement. She waited, listened, counted, and when the moment came, she moved. Not loudly, not dramatically, efficiently. The restraint loosened just enough. The panel shifted quietly. The system wasn't perfect. Systems never were. They only needed one flaw. And Ava found it. Within minutes, she wasn't just free. She was moving. Through the same corridors she had memoized. Past the same doors she once believed led to safety. Now she knew better. Now she understood how power worked. Control wasn't absolute. Awareness was stronger. She wasn't alone for long. The others were still there, hidden, waiting, surviving in silence just like she had. Ava didn't hesitate. She moved from room to room, unlocking, guiding, whispering instructions. Stay close. Follow me. No noise. Fear remained in their eyes, but something else appeared too. Hope. And Ava carried it forward. By the time Damien's empire reached the estate, something unexpected had already happened. The system was breaking from the inside. Servers had been accessed. Files copied. Data extracted with precision Ava didn't even realize she was capable of. Names. Routes. Transactions. Everything Kane had built, exposed. She didn't keep it. She sent it. Out. To media channels. Independent networks. Anonymous drops that couldn't be erased once released. Truth didn't need permission anymore. It needed visibility. Outside, Damien arrived like a force the city had not seen in years. His presence carried war without chaos, power without noise. Loyal soldiers moved with him. Precise, controlled, unstoppable. Loyalty had not broken. It had concentrated. Inside, Kane's control dissolved. Not through violence. Through exposure. Guards who once stood for him now hesitated. Systems they relied on no longer protected them. The illusion was gone. And without it, they had nothing left to defend. They stepped back. They surrendered. Because the truth had already won. In the center of it all, Ava stood. Not running. Not hiding. Waiting. Kane appeared across from her. His calm finally fractured. His control slipping in small, visible ways. You don't understand what you've done, he said. Ava stepped forward. No fear. Not anymore. I do, she replied. A pause. Then, quietly, you just never thought I would. She stood there, steady, unshaken, stronger than the system that tried to erase her. She was not a victim. She became powerful. From the entrance, Damien watched, not as a king judging from above, but as someone witnessing something rare. Transformation. She didn't need saving anymore. She had saved herself. And in doing so, she had changed everything. As the files continued spreading across networks, one detail surfaced that no one expected. Hidden. Buried deep. A name. Damien's eyes narrowed as the information reached him. Because it wasn't just data. It was personal. Proof. A trace. Something impossible. His missing sister might still be alive. The fall of Harold Kane did not happen with noise. It happened with silence. The kind of silence that follows truth when it finally takes control of the narrative. His name disappeared from the places that once protected him. His influence dissolved, not in chaos, but in exposure. Every file Ava had released continued to spread, reaching corners of the city that had once ignored voices like hers. The system that had hidden behind charity and polished reputations no longer had anywhere to hide. Kane was no longer powerful, and for the first time, he was visible. The city watched, and this time, it believed. The girls who had once been nothing more than numbers in hidden systems were brought into the light carefully, quietly, respectfully. No cameras forced into their faces. No headlines exploiting their pain. Damien ensured everything was handled with control, but not the kind he once used. This was different. Housing, protection, legal support, funds that didn't dissipate. Systems built with oversight, not illusion. Ava stood at the center of it, not as someone rescued, but as someone leading. She didn't ask for permission anymore. She created structure. Real. Accountable. The foundation she built didn't carry a polished name or false promises. It carried truth. Every decision made with clarity. Every action monitored. Every voice heard. People didn't call her unstable anymore. They called her something else. Strong. The girl they once laughed at now stood where no one expected her to be. Not beneath power, but beside it. Damien watched it happen. Not from a distance. Close. For the first time in years, the King of Chicago stood in public without hiding behind shadows. His empire had shifted. Not collapsed, but restructured. The darkest systems quietly removed. The visible ones strengthened. Business moved into legitimate channels. Control still existed, but it no longer thrived on fear alone. It evolved, and the city felt it. At first, elites resisted. Quietly, carefully, but one by one, they adjusted. Because power had not weakened. It had become harder to challenge. Damien didn't announce change. He executed it. And beside him, Ava stood, not as an outsider, not as someone protected, but as a partner. Their connection no longer lived in tension or uncertainty. It had grown through conflict, through truth, through the kind of understanding that couldn't be forced. She didn't belong to his world. She reshaped it. And Damien didn't control her. He respected her. Mine. The word existed again, but it had changed. Not possession, not dominance. Choice. Loyalty. Ready. Damien asked quietly as they stood at the entrance of the ballroom. The same ballroom. Ava's breath slowed as she looked at it. The place where she had been dismissed. Mocked. Silenced before she could even be heard. The memory still existed, but it didn't hold power over her anymore. Because she wasn't the same girl. I am, she replied. And she meant it. The doors opened. This time, no one laughed. No one whispered doubt. The same elite stood inside, but their eyes had changed. Respect had replaced dismissal. Awareness had replaced arrogance. The room still held power, but it was no longer untouchable. Ava stepped forward, not hesitating, not shaking, confident, controlled. She moved through the space like it belonged to her now, not because she claimed it, but because she earned her place within it. People turned, watching, not with judgment, but recognition. She had changed the rules. Damien followed beside her, not ahead, not behind. Close. The king and the queen. Not by blood, not by title, but by truth. Music began softly, filling the space with something unfamiliar. Not tension, not performance. Balance. Ava paused near the center of the room, her eyes scanning the faces around her. She saw the shift clearly now. The city had not just witnessed her story. It had learned from it. Damien stepped slightly closer, his voice low, steady. No one silences truth again, he said. It wasn't a promise made lightly. It was a command to the world he controlled. And this time, it was different, because it wasn't just his power behind it. It was hers too. The empire stood stronger than before, not because it ruled through fear, but because it no longer needed to. Ava felt it fully then. Safe. Not the fragile kind she once believed in. The real kind. Earned. Protected. Built. The music grew slightly louder as the moment settled into something almost peaceful. Almost. Because not every story ends cleanly. Some return. The doors opened again. Softly. Almost unnoticed at first. A woman stepped inside. Unfamiliar, yet carrying something that didn't belong to this moment. Her presence didn't seek attention, but it drew it anyway. Calm. Certain. Unshaken. Around her neck. A necklace. Simple. But unmistakable. Damien's. His family's. The one tied to a past he had buried years ago. Ava noticed the shift instantly. Damien's breath stopped. Just for a second. Then his heart started pounding again. Louder than it had in years. Because some ghosts don't stay buried. The woman stepped forward slowly, her eyes finding his. And in that moment, the Empire realized something impossible had just walked back into the room. His sister was alive. Some truths don't just change stories, they change people. If this one stayed with you, don't just watch it, be part of it. Like, share it with someone who believes truth always finds a way. And subscribe, because the next story might hit even deeper. And now tell me this. If you were Damien, would you still protect her after knowing your own empire helped create the danger?